What's up, WYXR? Today on the flight, I'm going to have a special guest here that is traveling along with us. Something a little different here on Flight Risk, but I definitely thought it was needed. So we're going to take about a good 15, 20 minutes to talk to one of my guests here, Mr. Ronald Hurd. I ran into him a couple weeks ago at a event that Team Memphis was having. We were taking young girls up to fly, and we had a book signing and a film with Miss Karen Parsons from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And just so happened I met Mr. Hurd, and he has so much information that he shared with me, and I was just blown away, you guys. So I wanted to have him on my show this Thursday to share some information with the community about an upcoming event next Saturday, actually, October the 22nd at the Orpheum Theater. So without further ado, I'm going to let Mr. Ronald do his thing. We're going to have a little bit of commentary, a few questions, but I want you guys to sit back, relax here on the flight, and just take it all in and get some good information, y'all. Some real good information. Here you go.
Well, Sister Ashley, it's an honor to be on your show. I'm named Ronald Hurd II, also known as Brother Ron by some of my people, my tribe, and I do podcasting and stuff like that. And I call myself the Artivist, which is an activist and artist put together. I think that's a rich tradition in our history of a people to not only use our talents to enrich ourselves, but also to empower other people and to bring awareness to things. I know as we do this, I know it's pre-recorded. This is a special day for me and for a lot of people. Saying this is like the 90th heavenly birthday of Baba Dick Gregory, who was a dear friend of mine. I knew him for 6 years. Used to interview him. Used to chase him down around the country, curse me out, do interviews. We eat lunch or dinner, whatever. We make up and stuff like that. So I'm just thinking about him today and think about him every day. But he's a great example of what an artivist is, which is using your platform, using your talents to bring awareness, to bring empowerment to your people, to give them the courage to stand on their convictions and to be their true and honest self and project that through the world. See, I think it's the best example because like another person I love is I never met. It's the Lonely and Spirit Monk, one of my favorite musicians and artists and just personalities of all time. His birthday was October the 10th. All these Libras are interesting people. And he said this, to be a genius is just to be oneself. I think people don't understand or overstand what a genius is. A genius is not a person that's very smart. You can be an idiot and be a genius. We see examples of that every day. People very good at something don't mean they know everything. Right. And I think people get that conflicted. It's like even you look at what a prodigy is versus a genius. A prodigy is just a mockingbird. It's a mimic. You're good at mimicking somebody else. Oh, you can sing like Mariah Carey or you can paint like Picasso, but can you sing like yourself? You have the truth and the awareness, the self-awareness of who you are to sing like yourself, to paint like yourself. And that's what a genius is. That's all. I mean, people I know it's like, oh, I can't believe this. It is basically. Because even with the Loneliest Monk, he said even it takes you 15 to 20 years to get an audience, be true to your craft.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
Even as a DJ, I experience the same thing. It's just being true to myself, Alpha Whiskey, So I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, that's real. Just be your authentic self.
Exactly. I'm glad that's important to hear because people are so confused right now. Because I know that we had conversations. You said, I never learned this in school. Well, school is not responsible for teaching you who you are. You learn that from your people, from your village, from your tribe. But that, knowledge itself is foundation of all pursuits in life. If you have a firm grounding on who you are and where you stand with yourself in relation to your people, in that continuum, you could do some amazing things. And you would not let people put you in a box to refine or dictate your narrative to you. You would take control of your own narrative because I really do believe your life is your movie. You are the director, the executive producer, the screenwriter, the lead actor, actress. This is your life. This is your movie. Like Baba Dick Gregory used to say that to me about your life is your movie. He said, don't let something that happened to you that was traumatic at 4 years old dictate your existence if you live to be 104. So you're going to let something that happened to you that was out of your control, that traumatized you at 4, rule the next century of your life. Is that really fair to you or other people? Are you robbing yourself as well as other people of the gift of your authentic self? So I stayed true, and I didn't know that being myself would get me in a lot of trouble. I really, I wish I had a time machine. I had no understanding that just existing and just being who I am would get me in a lot of trouble. I remember I was in school. I just went to my it was a college reunion, but not necessarily. I graduated from Washington University, St. Louis, 20 years ago. This past spring of 2002, and I still can't believe it's been 20 years since I left that place. And I went through the art school, and I had some very traumatic experiences at WashU. But somehow I'm a glutton for punishment because I still come back for reunions and get-togethers. And I was a part of this program called the John B. Irvin Scholars, who was named after John B. Irvin, who was the first black dean at Washington University in St. Louis. I don't call it Missouri or Missouri. I call it misery, the state of misery. But what saved me was community, like connecting with people in St. Louis, like black people. Like I had a lot of moms, looked after me up there, even connecting with professors in their office hours. Some of the professors I never took a class or course from, but we'll have discussions, and like they treat me like I was their peers. They was impressed with my point of view, with my creativity. They supported my art. So I was able to make a family in spite of the circumstances where I would find some very intimidating places and experiences up there. But I was able to get through because of beloved community of my own making, actually. But it goes back to I think that I didn't learn a lot about who I was in the classroom. Once again, even in college, I learned outside the classroom. Now, it was some things that inspired me within the classroom to pursue further investigation to who I was and where I'm coming from. Case in point, I know I'm rambling, but thinking about WashU and this one dude, this white Italian-American guy named Giuseppe Peroni, he's no longer with us. He was one of my favorite people. I found out he helped me a lot. First, I took his foundational 3D studies class my freshman year at WashU. This is back in the fall of '98. And it was like a Spike Lee joint. It was weird. It was like do the right thing. It's an Italian dude. I'm a black guy. We get into it. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. That's why I'm late to class. Mondays, 8 o'clock in the morning. I got to be here. And, Saturday weekend, you party, whatever like that. But he had showed something that was very profound in class. It was me and one more black person in the whole class. And he showed this documentary by Sun Ra. I said, who is this? And I saw this dude, it's like he was in space pajamas, playing in front of the pyramids, it seemed. And he was talking about space is the place. He said, I'm from Saturn. I'm here to teach the world how to love beautiful things and beautiful people. I'm here to teach black folks how to love themselves, to empower themselves, and know their importance and reclaim who they are. So he ain't said it like that, but he said it like that to me. And it really just caught my attention because the other guy, he was like, he went back to sleep. And I said, what is that? I like that. I'm digging that. So that kind of bonded me with this professor because he was a huge jazz fan. And so he had this extensive album collection of jazz greats. So he basically introduced me to my love of jazz because I used to think jazz was a thing where white folks in berets and they'll be like the beat poet type of stuff. Not realizing that one of the greatest beat poets was a black man. You know what I'm saying? People don't know that.
I want to add to that. I didn't learn about jazz music until I was in the 6th grade. And it was from a white male teacher that I had, Mr. Dunn. Okay. He came into our class and he bought a speaker sound system. He had record player and all that. And we were like, what is he doing bringing all this in here into the school? And while we were doing work, he would put on Miles Davis. I never knew who Miles Davis was until 6th grade when he started playing him. And then I would go home and get on LimeWire and Napster and download Duke Ellington, Miles Davis, all these great jazz musicians. And that's how I learned about them from my white teacher, No cop, yes, they are, yes. But it's something how we just don't know a lot about our culture, right, and how we made an impact in music with our own within our own community. So that's why I wanted to have you on the show, to just talk about all the music history that you know, and of course your event that's going to be honoring, you know, the Memphis music heritage of some of the greats that have come through here and just put Memphis on the map. Yeah, so without that being said, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
You know, I'm in great company. See, I'm really enjoying this. It's kind of hard to find good conversations in Memphis like this. But I guess I should talk about the program. We're doing the Jimmie Lunceford, the 2022 Jimmie Lunceford Legacy Awards, which is a celebration of Memphis music heritage. And we're honoring, my mom came up with this brilliant idea Dr. Callie heard about having a homecoming court. You know, like to honor people that are unsung, but they are truly heroes and sheroes and what they do and did and stuff like that. So we got a homecoming court of people honoring. We have the posthumous homecoming court king and queen, which this year is Dr. William Brewster, who ran East Trigg Baptist Avenue Church for years. He was Elvis's favorite minister. Elvis Presley used to go there in South Memphis and listen to Dr. Brewster and his choir sing and all that stuff, like Queen Anderson and all them type of people. And also he was a supporter and advocate for Mahalia Jackson. He wrote the song "Move On Up a Little Higher," which it became, a signature song, and like one of the first million sellers in gospel history. So he was in Memphis for decades at that church, East Trigg, and going to honor him as our posthumous king and our posthumous queen. It's the one and only Lucy E. Campbell, who was the mother of gospel music. I mean, she's got that title, and for right reasons she has that title, because she was the mentor to Mahalia Jackson. Like, she helped train her. She was like a longtime music director at the National Baptist Convention, and she actually helped debut Marian Anderson, the opera star, who sung at the steps of Lincoln Memorial because she couldn't sing at Constitutional Hall. So she was a mentor to Marian Anderson and helped her make her national debut. And also, she discovered Dr. King's favorite singer, who was not Mahalia. He loved Mahalia, but his favorite singer was a guy named J. Robert Bradley from South Memphis. And Lucy Campbell helped discover and train him. And he was known as Mr. Baptist. He had an amazing voice, operatic range. And Mahalia Jackson said that once he sung Amazing Grace, no one could do it better. So they let you know what type of esteem he was held in. And so he passed away in Nashville back in 2007. So we're honoring Lucy, and Lucy was a longtime teacher at Booker T. Washington High School. So Memphis is unique because a lot of the great ones that we help come through here have education backgrounds, whether it be Lucy Campbell or Ida B. Wells, who taught in the school system here back in the day, way back in the day. Moving on to our homecoming court king, living king, is Lawrence Boo Mitchell. He represents the legacy of Royal Studios.
Boo Mitchell, shout out Boo. I see Boo throughout the town, so shout out to Boo and Royal Studios.
He's a good brother, man. He's humble and laid back and cool, calm, and collective. He knows how to handle a crisis. I mean, he's really good at that. But we're honoring not only him and his amazing achievements, but also that's the legacy of his grandfather, Willie Mitchell. I had a chance to meet Willie Mitchell at the Handy Awards back in 2007. I took a picture with him, and I saw Boo at Howard Grimes' homegoing this year. Howard Grimes was the Memphis Bulldog. A lot of classic Royal Studio hits like "I Can't Stand the Rain." He was on that. And Al Green stuff, O.V. Wright, a lot of baby making music. So celebrate Al Grimes. I saw Lawrence, and you would never know he had all this success. He's just a good guy. He's very accessible and approachable. So this is also the 60th anniversary year of Royal Studios. So we're celebrating him and his legacy that he represents this year. And then you got the one and only Wendy Moulton, who really should have been up there with Whitney Houston in terms of career. Phenomenal voice. She was actually on The Voice and almost won last year. Runner up. Yeah, and she came back. And the thing about it is weird because she was already an established professional. She came out with a self-entitled album, Wendy Moulton, back in the early 90s. It might be some hits on there that you recognize that you know she did it, but she went to Overton High School, and I went to Overton, but I was a Wolverine. She was a Rebel, so like it was different time periods. But we saw her in Nashville, and she still got it. Like she sung backup for the likes of Michael Bolton and Julio Iglesias, and Julio Iglesias said she one of the greatest singers in the world. So that's high praise coming from a person like that. From Memphis, and she proud to rep Memphis. She loved everything about Memphis But we saw her over this past weekend, and she was phenomenal. Her voice is still to do that, to be established like she was, to go on The Voice, she was proving a point that even in her 50s, she still got it. You know, when Mavis Staples did her thing this past weekend, I mean, who gonna deny Mavis Staples, right? I mean, she earned that right, and Wendy has earned the right to be acknowledged as music royalty. So we honor her as well. And of course, you got the one and only Drummer Boy. Really proud to rep Memphis, but Memphis is hard on their hometown talent a lot of times. They don't get all the love. Like I said, a prophet is always without honor, except, is always, without honor among family, friends, hometown, whatever. Like it's a song called I'm a Stranger in My Own Hometown. That's an old song. But Drummer Boy, Grammy Award winning, hip hop music producer. He will be coming back to receive his flowers while he can smell them and enjoy and celebrate with family and friends. So it was a no-brainer to help bring him back because he put on for his city and been consistently putting on for his city. And also his father is James Golson, who I think I want to say he was the first black music professor at the University of Memphis, and he was a longtime clarinetist in the Memphis Symphony Orchestra. So shout out to James. And also he's a prolific author. And he's from Virginia too. But anyway, and also the one and only sister Deborah Manning Thomas is our princess. Drummer Boy was our prince, but we have her as our princess, and she's amazing. You talking about amazing voices? I mean, just phenomenal. I remember when she was at Bobby Blue Bland funeral, and I think First Broad, and she just brought the house down. You had BB King, everybody was there, and she's just wow. So this very humble woman, a true servant of God, I believe, an angelic voice, really a voice for the ages. It was a no-brainer to honor her. I guess we're very gospel heavy right here. But if you think about hip hop could not exist without the gospel, without soul. I had a chance at Stax Museum, shout out to Jeff Cole-Alpha and Stax. They brought in 24 Karat Black. You familiar with Oh my God. And Jared, shout out to Jared Boyd. He was there helping facilitate, moderate.
JB, shout out JB.
So, but what was crazy was I said, I never heard these people. And I said, I've been listening to these folks all my whole life because my favorite artists sampled these folks, whether it be Nas or Jay-Z or Dr. Dre or even Kendrick Lamar. They sample these guys and they don't get any royalties off of it.
Don't get a dime. It's crazy. You make all this magic and music and you don't get paid from it. But that's what was happening back then. They didn't have everything set up to where they were protected. So. Right.
And that, New Edition. That's the story. I mean, it's been like that for a long time for black artists, but yeah, that's the thing about that, the origins of hip hop. I know there's been a great debate about that as well. And they basically say, hey, the hip hop thing would not exist without us because one of the members actually was in the Bronx during the time of the so-called birth of hip hop. She actually was a friend of Jack McDuff, one of the musicians at Sugar Hill Records, a jazz musician that worked at Sugar Hill Records. Okay. So she was living in the Bronx, a bunch of Puerto Ricans, had some fascinating insights to the whole thing. And I got their take on everything. And they basically shut down the conversation about who created hip hop. So we could talk about that a little bit as well. Well, they were signed to Stax, but they said it was on the road for 2 years in a U-Haul with no money.
Wow.
Yeah, so they was on the road for 2 years with no money in U-Haul, and they came back home because Stax went bankrupt. So they was forced off the road, but they was on the road for 2 years starving. With one album that's a classic.
And what's the album that's the classic?
The only one they had that came out on Stax. I forgot names on it. Came out in 73.
Okay.
But they was on tour for 2 years with no money, and somehow, but one of their producers said this music gonna be played by your grandchildren, and now these were like kids because like the one of the youngest members was just 17, and now grandchildren are playing the music, the rappers are using the music to make a lot of money, and they still don't got nothing to show for all that.
Who owns the rights to the music then?
Well, it's not them because a lot of times the artists don't own the right to their music. You know what I'm saying? That's a big issue still. Like even though we know about the history of what happened to Little Richard and all them guys, we still fall for the same okie doke. Because you remember when Meek Mill said that he make no money off his music at all. He made money other ways. Mm-hmm. And Meek Mill had some bangers. Whatever you think about Meek Mill, he had some hot stuff. But why is that you giving billionaires Bentleys or whatever, and you can't even really afford a Bentley, but you helping give Robert Kraft, the billionaire owner of the New England Patriots, a Bentley for his birthday?
Yeah, it makes sense. Make it make sense.
Right. So we actually honoring. Also speaking of rap, Young Dolph. We doing a tribute to him,
Right.
the Young Dolph, and also we honoring Elder 1D Ship. He was my childhood pastor. He baptized me. I had no idea he was a legendary gospel music producer until a couple years ago when I saw the NPR feature on him. So I had, because I used to go to his Christmas parties when I was a kid. I knew he had a great sound system. I had no idea that he was like that influential in creating the gospel music sound, like actually implementing the wah-wah pedal with that wah-wah in gospel music. And so, I didn't know that until a couple years ago. So we're going to honor him as well. He's going to get a special tribute from the one and only Elizabeth King, great gospel talent that he helped nurture and discover. And also, we're going to pay special tribute to Reverend Artur Easton Williams, who we lost this past summer, who was an advocate for this city, for giving second and third chances to the youth. A very great voice who's been silenced over some weird stuff. And it don't make any sense. But we'll be honoring her, and also forgotten civil rights martyr Larry Payne, who was just 16 years old when he was killed by the police in the aftermath of Dr. King's last march that happened on March 28th, 1968. He was killed by the police in front of witnesses. The officer who killed them just died a couple years ago, protected. You know what I'm saying? Like, people assume that he was dead. Wow, now he lived all the way up to at least, I want to say 2019. So, but nobody knew. His family knew. They was ran out of Memphis. His mom was ran to Flint, Michigan, of all places, where she died a couple years ago. I had a chance to interview his mom and his brother and his sister, Carolyn, who's the biggest advocate for Larry Payne being recognized by the city, by the Civil Rights Museum, and never be forgotten. So we're going to honor, and she's a friend of mine, so we're going to honor Larry Payne there as well, and also the late civil rights journalist and editor of the Tri-State Defender back in the day, the Memphis Tri-State, L. Alex Wilson, who covered the Little Rock 9 thing. He took a severe beating. They got footage of him getting beat up real bad by the whites there, and probably led to his early death a couple years later after that. But his son was a clarinetist here in Memphis, brother named Sadberry. He was a clarinetist. He just moved to Minnesota. And so he actually, like his grandfather's buried in Elmwood, so he actually saw a thing he did where he did a music tribute to his grandfather graveside. So we're going to honor his grandfather that day as well. And who else? I hope I didn't forget nobody. H.D. Whalum. Who is the patriarch of the Whalum family. That's Kirk Whalum's grandfather, and that's also Scooter Whalum and Cameron Whalum's great-grandfather. He was Jimmie Lunceford's best friend. He had his own music singing group back in the day. He sung at Jimmie Lunceford's funeral on July 21st, 1947. On his way back home, he died in a car accident. So he's not buried not that far away from Jimmie Lunceford in Elmwood. I didn't know that until like several months ago. Just happened to, upon his grave, say, "Oh my God, this is Jimmie Lunceford's best friend, not buried too far from Jimmie Lunceford in Elmwood." So we're gonna honor him, and also, his family is amazing because one of his sons was a longtime director of the Glee Club down in Morehouse. It made it world renowned. That's one, and then another son was Peanuts Whalum. He was a phenomenal jazz musician and singer based in St. Louis. He played for the likes of Lionel Hampton, Dinah Washington, the who's who of jazz and blues and stuff like that. He just passed away a couple of Decembers ago in his 90s up in St. Louis. So that family is amazing. Not to mention all his great-grandsons, Scooter playing with Jay-Z and Maxwell. He on American Gangster Rock Boys. That's his saxophone solo. Kind of like he's following the footsteps of his uncle Kurt, who did Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You sax solo, and of course Cameron with Bruno Mars. They recorded Uptown Funk at Royal Studios. Yeah. So that's a rich family history and legacy that needs to be celebrated. Actually, Cortland, who's a phenomenal gifted singer, will be singing a tribute to his grandfather that day. So I guess it's a family affair, but also this is like made free to the public. They can register at Eventbrite, and also we got QR codes on the flyer they can use as the register, but it's not free for me, trust me. It's not free. But it's free for the people because I think it's very important that we invest in our people and we feed them this information. Before Dick Gregory died, I had waited like 13 hours in a hotel lobby in New York waiting for him to do an interview. This is a couple days after his birthday. Didn't know that was going to be his last birthday he'll celebrate in the flesh But I made it there at the last minute. It was at Caroline's Comedy Club in New York. So I drove on a mega bus from Baltimore to get there right in time to see him. I had no idea it was going to be his last birthday in the flesh. But he was happy to see me. He'll curse me and then be happy. But I waited 13 hours in the lobby, and we had a late dinner. And then that Saturday, he had gave me my assignment. He said, "You the feeder. You are here to feed the people, to water the crops, and make sure it grows. You might not be able to go to that party. You might not be able to take that vacation because the people need you to supply them with the nutrition they need to grow into excellence." So I said, "Okay, thank you a lot." But yeah. So but also that whole week we're doing things. That whole week we call it Jimmie Lunceford Jamboree Festival Week. We've been doing that for 5 years. I've been doing Jimmie Lunceford stuff since 2007, but we came up with the idea of do a whole week of activities to honor his legacy in 2017. And so throughout the week, most of the events will be available to the public and be free. We do some stuff with the Manassas High School at the beginning of the week. But before that, on Sunday, we're doing a gospel concert at East Trigg Avenue Church, where Dr. Brewster used to be the pastor.
That's October the 23rd?
Well, that's October the 16th.
16th, okay.
Yeah, we kicked out everything with the gospel concert at East Trigg.
On October the 16th.
October 16th from 3 to 5.
Okay.
So we're going to have some special guests come through. My mom, she's a creative genius in her own right. She came with the idea of singing pastors and choir directors. So you might have some pastors singing with their choirs. Or you might have some gospel greats come through, local gospel greats like Earlise Taylor and the one on Deborah Manning Thomas. They will be making cameos. And also the great-granddaughter of Dr. Brewster, Gigi, I call her, she go by Gigi, she will be in the house with her choir. Okay. So it's gonna be a family affair. It's gonna be interesting, and it's free. And so on Tuesday we'll be at Manassas, but that's like really for the student body and faculty. So we'll be doing a presentation with them. Been doing that for several years. And the thing about Manassas, which is sad, is that they've been having a hard time keeping a sustainable music program going for almost the last 20 years. Because they'll get band directors and they have to resign because of health issues. Or it'd be so much stuff going on. It's like health issues. Their last band director, James McLeod, he passed away unexpected. I guess he had COVID or whatever. So he died unexpectedly because they was actually making a turnaround. And this help people, they'll show up and they don't stay that long. But now they got a good brother named Thomas Perry who really turned around the Fairleigh High School band program. And he spent some time in Texas and Alabama. Now he's back home to try to resurrect Manassas High School. Okay. And kind of like what Dion has done for Jackson State. Right. Hopefully he could do that. He's a young guy. He's 32. I met with him. I saw the enthusiasm from the kids. Just because our kids have so much talent. Yeah. But it got to be nurtured. Right. It got to be invested in, and it's been neglected. Mm-hmm. So
everybody trying to be on Instagram and social media. They don't have time for the kids.
That's right. They don't have time for them.
On TikTok.
Yeah, well now the kids, you better make time because I'd rather have them play an instrument than break into my car. Right. That's where we at right now. 'Cause I had my car broken in a couple of times a month or so. But that's another story. But like what Jimmie Lunceford was doing with the music, right? Jimmie Lunceford was trained as a social worker. He was a music prodigy. He could play almost every instrument you could think of. But his gift was he wanted to use music as a way, as a rites of passage for young boys and girls to become mature and responsible adults. Because he was training girls and boys through music. And so when he went to Manassas, he was not hired to be the band director. He volunteered to be the band director. And what he did, what was interesting, was he called on the community to raise funds for instruments and stuff like that. And he is credited with being the first person in world history to teach jazz studies. Jazz studies, you got curriculums in colleges and universities throughout the world. But he did this back in the 1920s as a volunteer at Manassas High School, a black high school in what is now known as North Memphis. And Manassas High School was a Rosenwald foundation. The Rosenwald School was accredited schools. So Booker T. Washington, what we know as Booker T. Washington, was the first black high school for black children in Memphis. But Manassas was the first fully accredited black high school in Shelby County. It went all the way from 9th to 12th grade. I think Booker T. Washington stopped at 11th grade at that time. But he was there and made a popular local dance band from his high school students called the Chickasaw Syncopators. So they'll play around town. And Jimmie knew who he was. He came from a land-owning family down in Fulton, Mississippi. He actually lived in a community called Evergreen, which was outside of Fulton. He was born there back in June 6, 1902. And his folks owned land. Like his parents owned almost 80 acres of land. I think his grandparents owned like 300 acres. And I went down there about 5 years ago, talked to some of his relatives. Like this pastor who was retired, he showed me around Evergreen. And he, proudly showed me around because his family still own land down there. They got the homes built on land. They got it by lakes, whatever. And Jimmie was a tall, dark, and handsome cat. Very dignified. He didn't curse or swear. He didn't drink. I had a chance to talk to people that actually knew him. One was Catherine Parrish Thomas. She was Manassas class of 32. And I had befriended her. I wish I had interviewed her more. She passed on around, I want to say December 2007, January 2008. But her brother was Andrew Perry. He was a saxophonist with Mr. Lunceford. He went to high school there. And he turned pro with Jimmie Lunceford. And so she said, and she used to be a classically trained piano player. And she said by the time those people graduated from school, you thought they were 30 years old. That's how mature they were because of his influence. He was this well-respected guy. And he left Memphis in 1930 with his best high school students. He also had his buddies from Fisk University play with him, like Willie Smith, one of the great alto saxophonists of all time. Like, in the 1930s, you had the big three when it comes to swing, jazz, alto saxophone. You had Willie Smith, Benny Carter, and Johnny Hodges, the Rabbit from Duke Ellington. Man, I love the Rabbit. But Willie Smith was like a combination between Benny Carter and Johnny Hodges with his sound. But they left, and about 4 years later, they were struggling, man. They'll go to Cleveland or Buffalo, having cheese crackers and peanut butter without the jelly and the bread, whatever. 4 years, 1934, they become the house band at the Cotton Club. After Duke Ellington and Cab Calloway, the Jimmie Lunceford Orchestra becomes the most popular attraction at the Apollo Theater, for a whole decade. So they're the number one attraction at the Apollo Theater for a whole decade. You think about all the people that came through, even during that time, and for them to stand out like that. And it was the most popular dance band for black people in America. They were bigger than Duke Ellington and Cab Calloway and Count Basie, Chick Webb. They was the biggest and most popular jazz dance band. And I tell people that down, they just, really? I said, you got to think about it. Duke Ellington and Count Basie lived to be almost 80 years old. So they had enough time, television, and they were still out there, gigging. They had enough time for people to give them their flowers and notoriety. Whereas Jimmie Lunceford died at 45. So, and what made his band so great was like they was one of the first orchestras or units to have tailor-made suits. So they had the tailor-made suits. They could sing, they would dance, they would tell jokes. Like the trumpet section would throw their trumpets in the air in unison and catch them and play where they left out at. A lot of precision, very well disciplined. They were known as the trained seals because that's how good they was as far as showtime presentation. And they had an amazing sound. They had Memphis is known for its unique sound, whether it be the gospel, whether it be the rap or the jazz or the blues. We got a unique signature on sound. And Jimmie is a part of that sound. Had the Lunceford beat, a certain type of 2-beat. And his drummer was Jimmy Crawford, who was, I guess, a teenager when he turned pro with Jimmie Lunceford. And then his bassist was Mose Allen. They all, I think they went to Manassas, and they all like teenagers when they went with Jimmie Lunceford on this little journey. And so Glenn Miller said it best. Glenn Miller, to me, if Jimmie Lunceford is Magic Johnson, then Glenn Miller is Larry Bird. And Glenn Miller said that Jimmie Lunceford has the best of all bands. He said Duke is great, Count is remarkable, but Lunceford tops them both. That's high praise from a fellow aviation pioneer. Glenn Miller disappeared over the English Channel during World War II. They never found his body, or they might have found his body, and they just never got retrieved it, So they both have interesting ties to aviation because Jimmie Lunceford also brought and owned his first airplane in 1940 for what is now would be like $500,000 in today's money. So this dude was doing the Great Depression, had enough money. A black man doing the Great Depression had enough money. But they were not trying to train black people. Just the Bessie Coleman thing. She had to go to France. So, and you think about Tuskegee Airmen, how they treated them. So this dude took flying lessons in 1939 And by 1940, he had his own plane where he's flying around the country to his gigs. Sometimes he'd take his own guys with him. And he even crashed his airplane at one point and walked away from it, which is amazing. Right. So, this is an amazing guy. I can't make him up highly weird. And so what I love about Jimmie Lunceford is that he would come back to Memphis when he got big and famous. He would do free concerts and musician clinics at Manassas High School. So I knew a guy who was very much impacted by that. It was the late, great Mr. A.L.L Jr., who was part of Manassas High School Rhythm Bombers, their band. So he would tell me about how he was so inspired by Joe Thomas, the tenor saxophonist from Kansas City who played with Mr. Lunceford. And Joe Thomas was a very big influence on a lot of tenor saxophonists back in that period. But Mr. A.L.L was so amazed by his sound. And he loved Mr. Lunceford because I believe his father went to Manassas when Mr. Lunceford was teaching there, Emerson A.L. Sr. So Mr. A.L. dedicated his life to music and music education. He one of the best high school band directors this city ever produced. He actually got a swimming scholarship to Tennessee State University. So that's how he got his ride. He he could swim like a tadpole. I mean, Mr. A was a small dude, but he was a smart man. I would call him a Renaissance man. Had a very beautiful handwriting, calligraphist, also a visual artist, just did everything well. And also he kicked Isaac Hayes out the high school band at Manassas. Ended up working for Isaac Hayes at Stax, the Isaac Hayes movement, helped him with his arranging and all that stuff along with Onzy Horn Sr., and also co-founded the Southern Heritage Classic in his living room with Fred Jones. Okay. Because Mr. A.L. was also a college band director at one point. So he had all the connections to the college bands and the HBCUs and stuff like that. And also he designed the first logo for the Southern Heritage Classic. So I always made a good point to tell that because he kind of walked away. I mean, he was a very frustrated man at the end because of stuff he was trying to do. And he had his heart in the right place. But Memphis is a hard place, especially on the people they produce. You know what I'm saying? So God bless him. So when I do what I'm doing, it's not only for Mr. Lunceford, it's for the people like Mr. Emerson A.L. who believed in people, who invested in children, who knew that we got to give back if we want to survive and as well as thrive. Yeah. Okay.
I appreciate that. That's why I wanted to have you here on the show on Flight Risk. To just let the community know what's going on and who come from Memphis. These are some very talented people. I tell people I'm from Virginia, but I've been here in Memphis since 2014, and I've learned so much about the Memphis history with musicians and all types of stuff. Like Memphis is just special. I would say, I almost left in 2017, but I was like, nope, I'm staying right here in Memphis, Tennessee. The music, the people, the culture, I saw where it's starting to grow. And I said, people are starting to come together. People starting to work together and just do some great things. And I wanted to be a part of that. And so a part of that, me having this show here is sharing with the people, what's going on, knowing your history, knowing, where all these, great artists, where they come from, how they got to where they are and what they did, because it gets so lost, and we got to help the younger ones. If we, get off social media and all these other distractions and really share history, and inspire the youth. So that's why I wanted to have you here. And is there anything else you want to finish up or you want to say before we get back to the music?
Let me finish out the festival week. I'll get on 10. I'm sorry, but I was thinking, I ain't even finished out the festival week. But like Sunday is the gospel thing at 3 to 5 at East Trigg out in South Memphis off of Bellevue. Then on Wednesday night, we're having actually a movie night in Stax. We've been doing it for the last 5 years at Stax. We're going to be showing Hallelujah, which was the first all-black talkie produced by Hollywood, and it was filmed in Memphis back in the 1920s. And so the director was actually nominated for an Oscar for that movie, King Vidor. And it introduced the world of Nina Mae McKinney, Hollywood's first black sex symbol. And she was like 17 at the time. But he had Memphians in this film. They did the baptism scene near Lamont Owen. There used to be a bayou over there that's been filled out. But so I was at, Hallelujah. First black talkie from Hollywood film to Memphis. People thought about Hustle and Flow, but this happened decades before Hustle and Flow. So we're going to be showing that at Stacks on Thursday around noon.
Who directed the film?
King Vidor, this white guy from Galveston, Texas.
Okay.
Galveston produced Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight champion. But King Vidor wanted to make it was kind of like a love letter to black culture. Because he's a white dude from the South. He grew up around a bunch of black people and stuff like that. Probably was his maid and probably nursed him, all that stuff. You know how that goes. But it's really interesting to watch. It's really interesting to watch. And Thursday, we're doing a luncheon with Lunceford. Because we go to Elmwood around noon. Jimmie Lunceford can't eat nothing. He dead. It's just ashes and dust and whatever. But like Lunceford is a way for the community to come out and we talk about what we want to talk about. You can eat. You can play your instrument. You can recite your poetry. You can just talk. There's time to talk. And that's be graveside where he's buried at Elmwood. And Friday we'll be back. We'll be here in the listening lab. Okay. We'll be doing a thing about Jimmie Lunceford, playing some of his music, having people talk about Memphis music, and I'll be talking about Jimmie Lunceford. We'll have some special guests as well. And the special guests will be the people who show up actually and want to talk or perform. So it'll be interesting.
What day is that?
That's Friday, October 21st from 5 to 8.
5 to 8, Memphis Listening Lab.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then also Stacks, the Stacks movie night will be Wednesday, October the 19th. They'll be from I want to say 6 to 9.
6 to 9, okay.
Right.
Well, Mr. Ronald, I appreciate you being here and sharing all the information. To all the listeners here on the flight, I hope you got some great information and you are able to attend this awards and honoring Mr. Jimmie Lunceford and all the other amazing artists here from Memphis, Tennessee that has really paved the way for future musicians. And again, thank you. And if you guys want to know any other information, they can look you up. Ronald Hurd, Mr. Ronald Hurd. Where can they find?
I'm easily accessible. My phone number is 901-299-4355. That's 901-299-4355. Also, you can call and text, and also we all be at gmail.com. That's WEALLBE at gmail.com. And I'm on social media, even though I don't need to be social media, but it's necessary evil for me. So I'm promoting Instagram is at R2C2H2. That's at R2C2H2. And I'm on Facebook, R2C2H2. And you look at Ronald NBA Hurd second, whatever. And on Twitter is at WeAllBe. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we're gonna get back to the flight. Here we go.
Although the 2022 Jimmie Lunceford Legacy Awards was free for the people, all power to the people, we at the We All Be Group Incorporated still incurred a debt. So we want y'all to help us, like we help you all. Help us retire that debt. Help us retire the debt so we can keep on doing this God work that we were sent to do, because we all be in it to win it. You can cash out your support, $R2C2H2. You can Google Pay, PayPal, and Zelle your support at R2C2H2 at gmail.com. That's our email, R2C2H2 at gmail.com. You can even Venmo your support at R2C2H2. That's at R2C2H2. And now you can Apple Pay your report. You could type in my phone number, 901-299-4355. That's 901-299-4355. Because it takes a village to raise a jazzocracy. Because Jimmie Lunceford matters, Black history matters, and Black music most definitely matters. See how it works? Somewhere. And let me further add that the We All Be Group Incorporated is an recognized 501c3 nonprofit organization by you know who, the IRS. So your donation is tax deductible. Is tax deductible. Is tax deductible. Because celebrating Lunceford is our business, and we need your help.